well, we will kick things off. Welcome. It's good to see everybody here. There's a lot of new faces, and if I haven't talked to you yet, maybe we can find time after we wrap up here. So I am so excited to interview Susan today, and we're going to get to that in just a couple minutes. I want to, because there are new faces, give you a little bit of an overview about Iowa Center for Economic Success and what we represent here. And then I'm going to bring Christina Moffett up from the Des Moines Partnership, and we'll talk about some upcoming events they have going on as well. So I'm Amy Hutchins, and I manage programming for the Iowa Women's Business Center, which is a program of Iowa Center for Economic Success, which is where you are at today. So Iowa Center of Economic Success has 4 programs, the Iowa Women's Business Center being one of them, and our main focus is on education and resources for our entrepreneurial community. So we host our First Fridays. We have events called Topical Tuesdays, which are every other Tuesday. Our upcoming one is focused on, do you hire employees or do you contract, and what are some of the pros and cons to both? So we try and focus on trends in the small business community that we can help educate folks on. We also offer a business planning course, and I see some folks that have taken that course before, and that's just to help you either get started on your business plan or maybe augment what's already in place. So that's the Women's Business Center. We also have a micro-lending team. Ashley runs our program. He's standing in back. And we're here to, you have your business idea, now you might need a little financing behind it. So we run the Iowa Economic Development Authority's loan program. You can get up to $30,000 if you're a startup business, and up to $50,000 if you've been in business for 6 months already. Anything to add?
You got it right.
I got it? Okay. We're also a VITA site, so we do free tax prep all year long. So you can come in and get consultation on what needs to happen with your taxes. We'll file your taxes for you, and it's all free. We have over 700 volunteers statewide that help us run that program. And then last but not least, Fin Capital. So we are the only all-female angel investing network in the state of Iowa, so it's a bit like Shark Tank. We see pitches on a monthly basis, and then our lovely team of investors decide ultimately if it's something that they want to invest in. So we try and be as fully integrated as we can here, and offer the folks that come visit us pretty much any aspect that they need. But of course, knowing that we can't do everything, we have wonderful resource partners in town. The Des Moines Partnership is one of them, and we collaborate on our First Friday series together. So I'll bring Christina up now.
Yeah. Well, happy Friday. The Greater Des Moines Partnership is honored to co-host the series. When I came on 18 months ago, I knew what an amazing series this was, and came to them and asked if we could simulcast it out. So it's Mike back there simulcasting out, so that if people can't join us in the room, they can actually sit at their desk and watch. And/or we also record this. So if you find it valuable and you want to share it with people later on, please do that. I have multiple flyers. We have education going on constantly. For existing businesses is really our focus. So a lot of times after they go through Dream Builders, I come in and speak about what's next. Where do you find additional resources? There's multiple out there. We have the next one coming up actually July 25th. So in a couple of weeks, we have top 5 for your small business. And the 5 things we're focused on this month is things to know about protecting your intellectual property when employees leave. So right now we know the job market is small, and a lot of our employees are, competition I should say, is trying to recruit your employees away. So how do you protect that vital information when those employees leave? And there's a couple more that are on here coming up, but these are also simulcasted and recorded. So if you need help on a previous topic, there's a ton already posted. We have over a year's worth of different topics posted out on our website that are available to you. The other thing we have coming up is if you're looking for capital for your business, actually the microloan program always comes in and presents at this, but we walk through a half day on what to expect when you're going to get a loan, what are the different loans, because when you go to banks you get bounced around, so we're kind of just trying to file and get you the information you need. We also cover state programs, and then we have 2 entrepreneurs that actually come in and talk about their experience with the different programs that they've used. So that is August 2nd. It's limited to 20 people. We already have 8 seats filled. We have not pushed this yet, so if you're interested, it will be pushed the end of the month. It will be pushed in our newsletter the coming week. So jump on and gather that. And then the big one is we have our Save the Date. It's our small business success summit. I see faces that went to that last year. It is a full day of continuing education for that. We have 2 great keynotes coming in. That will be our lunch and closing keynote. Those will be announced very soon through a press release. And then Google was our opening keynote. They are coming back to kick off the day and tell us everything that's coming for 2019. So you get kind of a sneak peek before everybody else on the tools that are coming out. So that registration is open right now. We are working with our sponsors and securing our 18 different breakout sessions so that we can get you the information that you need to continue to grow. We do have one more event that is coming in September, and it is actually how to sell online and how to get online as we continue to look at how online is impacting businesses. It will be crucial that you compete online, even if it's scheduling appointments with your clients and not necessarily all selling product. Everybody's going online. So Google is actually one of our presenters for that. We also have 3 local businesses that will talk about small, from selling on Instagram to I have several brick and mortar stores and I sell online, to one of our local businesses that's actually selling with Zulily and actually going on Amazon. So all different levels on how to do that. So fall is coming up, everybody gets back on their school kick, so that's why you hear a lot coming from us, because businesses do the same.
I know, and there's just so many resources in these type of classes in town, so if you ever have an interest or a topic that you even want to learn more about, you can let us know.
Yeah, let either of us know. So I'll kick it back over.
Okay, because this is why you're here. We are going to sit, and I'm so thrilled because we just ordered tall chairs. So next time you come, we will have our tall chairs to sit in. So Susan, we have been chatting now. I just met Susan for the first time a couple months ago. So I'm just starting to learn a bit more about Susan's story as well, and it's a great story. So we're gonna kind of start there, just to give everybody a quick update. What is your story? How did you come about basically being the business owner of Olson-Larsen Galleries?
It was a cold day in December,
Cold
1977. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. I was lucky enough to end up at the gallery after a few years in Salt Lake City, which I moved to after I graduated from college. So I studied art history and journalism, and art has always been in my life. I have a very artistic family, and we were exposed to a lot of different artistic things. So I always knew I wanted to do something in the arts, but I wasn't sure what, and I'm not that great of an artist. So that kind of closed that door for me. But I always enjoyed writing about it, learning about it, telling other people about it. So I got an art history and journalism degree, moved to Salt Lake, and worked in this wonderful contemporary art center, both as a curatorial assistant and then later as the coordinator of education. So it was a dream job, and I enjoyed it very much, but then I decided I wanted to move back to Des Moines, even though when I was a teenager I said I'm never living in Des Moines because it's lame. I live here now and I love it. So came back here, and I don't know how many resumes I had, but I printed as many as I could and went to any
We can pause there.
mimeographs, and took them to every art place I could think of. In the interim, before I started the gallery, I was lucky enough to do some contract work for the symphony, and so did that for a few months, and then Marlene Olson called me and said, I found your resume in a file. I said, good. And this was several months later. Anyway, so the rest is history in terms of that. I worked as the gallery manager for Marlene for 7 years. And then, well, about 6.5 years in, she started having these chats with me. So I think I'm gonna retire and sell the business. Do you wanna buy it? Nope. A couple weeks later, so I think I'm gonna retire. You know, I mean, I just never saw myself as a business owner. I always saw myself as a museum or art center person, and it was interesting working in the commercial gallery field after being in the art, you know, kind of nonprofit field. And something that Olson-Larsen has always done, and that I've tried to continue, is we are very invested in the community in Valley Junction and West Des Moines and Des Moines as a whole. We are volunteering for arts organizations. We are donating to arts organizations and other types of organizations. So anyway, that Marlene's philosophy there really helped me kind of reconcile that. Like, okay, I do work at an art gallery and I'm selling art, which seems weird, but we're also doing all these other wonderful things. So anyway.
So was that a bit of a pivotal moment for you? Was just having that recognition that
yes,
this was something
yes.
that you might want to continue
Yes,
doing?
yeah. So anyway, few more meetings, and you know, I don't want to say she convinced me, because that's not quite accurate, but it, you know, like I said, it just kind of came out of nowhere, and it's not something I was planning on doing, but I don't regret a minute, and I had 1,000 conversations with my husband and my family. I have a local family, very supportive family, and decided to, why not?
Why not go
give
for
it a shot.
Was there, okay, so now talk a little bit about your situation at the time. Talk about Maisie.
What situation are you talking about? So, during one of the, like, in the midst of our kind of casual conversations about this, I came to Marlene one day and said, so I'm pregnant. And so I had Maisie on July 8th, 2010, and I took over ownership September 17th, 2010, so.
Had you
Crazy.
already sort of gone so far down that path by the time?
Yeah.
So,
And it was, you know, Marlene's response when I told her, she was like, oh no, are you gonna totally back out? I said, nope, let's do it, why not, you know? Let's just do it all at once.
Don't know what I'm doing, and now I don't know what I'm doing
Yeah.
in the professional space or in the
first child,
space.
So
What, I mean, just how did you handle it? Was Marlene sort of transitioning out at the time that you all of a sudden were a new mom too?
Yep.
And talk about some of your, I don't know, emotions or struggles of just all of a sudden feeling that you're taking over this business and I've got this little person at home.
Yeah. It was one of those things where you kind of don't know how you did it until you're on the other side of it. I just plowed through. And like I said, I have an incredibly supportive family here in town, and very supportive husband. And this guy over here has been with me at the gallery since forever. So it was just he and I at first, and so there was a lot of, people don't know, a lot of extra time. This is Mark Goodrich, frame shop manager.
So what about then just that transition of going from being the manager of the gallery to all of a sudden being the owner? I mean, just how did that transition go? And it's Marlene, right? What was her role in that versus what wasn't her role in that?
Sure, it was a really smooth transition. You know, we only have a couple people on staff, so I was doing most of the day-to-day operations anyway, and a lot of the client and artist communication. So that aspect of it was pretty smooth. What kind of threw me for a loop, and it's like I knew it was coming, but it was still really difficult, is just managing the financial end of things, because I literally made deposits, and that was about it in terms of finances for the manager position. So that was a little bit of a kick.
So had Marlene done all of the financials?
Yeah, I didn't touch
So
it.
there was really never a discussion. It was just assumed you'll take that over.
Here's the QuickBooks. I mean, she had a bookkeeper that I inherited as well, a contractual bookkeeper who was awesome and amazing and she took care of it for the most part. But it's just still like the kind of the ebb and flow and the decisions of how to do this and when, and so that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. So.
And did she sit down with you during all this and really help you understand, here is the revenue that the business brings in, here is, you know, did she set monthly goals, so you sort of had an idea of what you needed to do to keep food on his table and, you know, keep things moving?
I mean, and when we were kind of going through the transition, of course there was some discussion about revenue and what came in per month and kind of the operating needs and et cetera. So
and you thought, I can do this, I'm just going to hire somebody to help me.
right. Yeah. And I mean, and that's something that you and I talked about the first time, is the importance of knowing your strengths and focusing on those and figuring out other folks to do the others.
What about on the opposite side? What about other than financials? Were there any other just sort of weaknesses or gaps that you realized in that first year, as an example of, okay, maybe I can't do this and I should ask for help?
Yeah. So we were laughing about this on the way over here. Our gallery manager is here too, Elise Vernon. Decision making.
Yeah.
No, hear that giggle back there? Yeah. I like to mull things over. I like to talk to everybody about it. I like, and so I'm not just like, nope, we're doing this, let's go. I'd say I've gotten better. But that was it. That was, all of a sudden it was like, okay, you're the one.
Need to make a call.
And Marlene was a very, very quick decision maker, very decisive. But she'd also been doing it for 30 years,
Yeah.
And so that makes a difference. Obviously, it's that intuition and that instinct that come along after you've
been doing that. Well, talk about your confidence level a little bit. So we, talk to so many people in this space on a daily basis, and I often hear that, you could be so confident in what you were doing when you had this enormous team there to support you and somebody else was running the show. And then all of a sudden you are, and, regardless of how confident you were going into it, it kind of takes a hit. Did you feel that?
Oh, absolutely. Because I had done the manager job for 7 years, and I was pretty good at it, and we had a good rapport and everything. But yeah, I was quite nervous. Again, like with the decision making, it was all of a sudden like, oh, the buck stops here now, and what if this decision I'm making today makes everything go up in flames, and that kind of extreme thinking. But again, people around me were, that's probably not going to happen, and
Well, I was just going to say, what did you do to kind of work to? How long did it take before you felt it all click again?
I don't know.
Still not.
Tomorrow, maybe tomorrow. Yeah. No, I don't know. It just kind of depends on there's still those tricky situations and whatnot.
So you were inheriting a business, basically, and we had chatted a little bit about how when you're in that situation, you just sort of continue to do the things that were being done before, because that's how they were done. Mm-hmm. So at what point, probably very different personalities, probably different perspectives, at what point did you have that moment of recognition where you thought, I want to try a few things differently? Is that going to be okay? And then what were some of those things that you decided to make a change?
Yeah. So the gallery will be 40 next year. So it's been in operation for a very long time. And
Has it always been Valley Junction?
Yes.
Was it always? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in that time, the art and framing business has changed quite a bit. So the things that Marlene was doing, and she ran it for 30 years as a very, very successful business. And it was kind of and she was kind of realizing that maybe her time had come. That sounds very morbid, but she's like, it needs some shaking up in order for it to keep going, and that was part of the reason why she was kind of ready to retire. Mark and I had a lot of conversations right after that about, okay, the economy is much different still. It was 2000. That's another crazy thing. It was like right after the recession.
The year.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of this credit goes to Mark. Mark's an entrepreneur. He has ideas that I wasn't thinking of because I didn't have a marketing or business background. And so a lot of what we talked about and implemented was trying to come at the client in a lot of different ways, not just, hey, do you want to buy a painting? It was, okay, we have a frame shop that does all these things, but we can also install for you. We can also do a display system for your concrete wall that you can't, so it was trying to get to the client different ways, if that makes sense, rather than just kind of the traditional knock on the door, do you want to buy some artwork? That
so did
answers your question.
And has that over the years then changed the makeup of sort of your revenue stream? Have you?
Yes, and the other thing that goes along with that is, so the framing branch has been there for decades, but more, it was never promoted and marketed. It was more kind of a word of mouth. We had great clients, but it wasn't pushed. So that's something, again, with original artwork sales looking a lot different these days than they used to. Okay, so how this other source of revenue that we have, how can we make that even more beneficial? beneficial. So we market the framing much more than we used to. We advertise it. We moved the frame shop on site because the frame shop used to be at Marlene's property east of town.
Oh,
so
okay.
that was something that just needed to happen anyway because I didn't have room in my house for the frame shop. The garage. So that has also helped because it's just more visible. A lot of people are like, oh, I didn't even know you did framing. So that's another
Just
thing
being
that
more
we
mobile.
pushed.
So, well, kind of like you brought the frames in-house, you just recently had kind of a different change as well, in that you have a second building, which was also something that was likely never in your
Right.
thought process at the time that you
Right.
took over
Yeah.
the gallery. So kind of talk a little bit about how, well, it's an opportunity. It was an opportunity for you, and now it could be another growth contributor to your business.
Absolutely.
So chat about that a little bit.
Okay. So
And maybe, I'm interrupting.
That's
Maybe chat a little bit about what the kind of product that you currently have
sure.
in your space, and then why the second.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we at the gallery at our main location we display works by our artists that we represent. So we represent about 65, kind of fluctuates, contemporary Midwestern artists. We display all original works. So we have painting, sculpture, photography, mixed media, everything in between. The other building that Amy is referring to is, so we work with both individual and corporate clients doing all kinds of different things. So about almost 2 years ago now, we were displaying the work of Lee Running in our main gallery. She's a Grinnell artist, and she was showing Mark and I this great installation that she had just done in Nebraska. And we were like, oh, that'd be fun to kind of show in tandem with this work, but it wasn't really working in the gallery space. So we actually were looking at a different space that our landlord owned, and it didn't work out. And fortuitously, Lee said, well, I've always been kind of curious about that building over there. And again, landlord owned that building as well. So there's this funny little gas station on the corner of 4th and Maple and Valley Junction that you may have all driven by a million times and wondered what it was. So called up the landlord and said, so how about we put a wacky installation in here for gallery night in October, just for a little while, and she was great. She said, yeah, let's try it. That sounds good. We're trying to kind of jazz up gallery night a little bit. It was a success. We got a lot of great feedback about it. The artist was happy. So I went back to the landlord and said, why don't we do this? Can we do this more? Because it was really fun. And the thing about it is it provides a very visible space and a very unusual space for artists that are doing work that we at the gallery think is important and interesting, and we want to help these artists, but we can't really display it at the gallery, or it's not something like a kind of a typical, not something that would really work in the gallery. But I still want to help, there's a lot of artist friends that I still want to help out in this way. So as a byproduct of that, in addition to getting extra storage, which was great because there's a whole storage area, we've also noticed, and this is part of the intention too, a different clientele coming in. So artists' friends, or people that are following these local artists that have never been in Olson-Larsen. So that's just drawing a whole new demographic that we're often chasing, a younger demographic.
So has that then impacted, when we think about sales strategy, so you talked a little bit how you changed your approach by introducing new options for your buyers, and now you've all of a sudden brought on a new demographic as well. So what is your go-to-market, or what is your sales strategy in terms of all the different target audiences that you could potentially be reaching now? Is that you out? Are you out on the street forming relationships with certain businesses as an example? Is it more done through your marketing efforts?
We attack on as many fronts as we can.
Attack.
Yeah, so Mark and I do quite a bit of networking, in-person networking. Elise does a great job with our social media. She's increased the followers tenfold over the last year. So we're really active on Instagram and Facebook. We were always strategizing on how to go after clients, just almost cold calling, or we hear, a new building's coming up, et cetera. And the point, in drawing the younger demographic in too, it's like, okay, there's a bit of a stigma about Olson-Larsen that it's like, oh, that's too expensive of a place to go, or that's, you know, that's for corporate art, or et cetera. That's some of the feedback we've heard in the past. Like, no, we can do, and we can frame anything. You know, we can frame your kid's drawing, or we can frame your Andy Warhol. So we just want to make that
more known.
Yeah, that more known. And so that's kind of how we're trying to change. Not, I don't want to say change the image, but add to the image, augment the image a little bit.
So you talked a little bit, you talked about Mark and Elise and sort of your team, and you mentioned to me the other day that you kind of, I think you called it team-based, like a team-based management style. So talk a little bit about employees in general, and was that an eye-opener for you? And all of a sudden, did you feel a little bit more responsible all of a sudden about the livelihood of the people that
absolutely
you're bringing on?
Yeah.
And how did you sort of fall into your leadership stride, I guess, when you're all of a sudden managing?
Stumbled.
Or should we ask Mark?
Yeah, right. There you go. No, but that's a good point too, because Mark and I, you know, we worked together for quite some time, and like I said earlier with my, you know, I was kind of joking sort of about the decision making, but like I like to have the discussion, and I like to get all the input, and I'm surrounded at work, and Brittany Hansen is back at the gallery, maybe watching. So she's another integral part of us. So anyway, they all bring so much to the table, and I've been there almost 15 years. Yeah. So there's things that I'm kind of sometimes exist in a vacuum a little bit. So they all bring different ideas and fresh perspectives, and I just think the balance of all their different talents and perspectives really works. And I don't know, that's just how I
manage.
That's just how I like to. And I mean, at the end of the day, I'm responsible, so I make the final decision. But I try not to micromanage, because I trust trust them to do what they need to do. And if something doesn't happen quite right, then we talk about it and figure it out. Like it's
a team approach.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it took you some time to, I don't want to say get there. It wasn't a lack of trust in people. It was you just wanted to have your hands in everything.
That thing, yeah.
And you hear that a lot, especially when you're either purchasing or taking on your new business. You just feel the need to be involved in every single aspect.
Yes. Yeah. And that I still, because when you're at Olson-Larsen, when you're the gallery manager, you do have your hands in everything. You have to keep track of a lot of moving parts. So trying to step away from that it's still, I have a hard time doing. Just a few weeks ago, Lisa's like,
walk away.
Give me a list of the things that you think you should be doing, the things that I can help you. I mean, it's still a struggle, and I think that's part of just personality. But yeah, and I think some of it was I should have had that idea, that kind of thing too. But yeah, you got to step away.
You have to trust,
and just be happy that you're surrounded by really smart, creative people.
You and your team also do a ton of shows and events. I think you mentioned like 6.
Mm-hmm.
So how integral is that? Is that a pretty big strategy for your gallery?
Mm-hmm.
Is the shows?
Yes. Yeah.
And a lot of work.
Yeah, and especially these days when so many things and so many transactions happen online, it's important for us to make those connections with the clients. I would say that's one of the favorite parts of my job is just, I've known a lot of these clients for 15 years now, or now I'm just meeting new ones and getting to know them and figuring out what they need and want, but also just, exploring things with them. And so that can't happen online. That happens in our store, and it's a struggle. We're up against art.com and places like that where people just point and click and frame and buy. So a lot of our presentations and things now that we're doing to design firms and places like that is education of, okay, here, we're going to give you the service. We're going to give, if something happens, call us, we'll fix it, etc.
So that's been a strategy then against selling against the .com.
Yeah. So that relates back to the opening, because we do an opening reception for each show. We often do additional events with the show. Just we like to get people in, we like to educate them, introduce them to our artists, because on the sales side that helps too when a client has a connection with an artist or gets to meet them and learn a little more about them. That
and then how do you determine the artist to bring into your gallery? How do you determine who you're carrying? Is it something where you're going out and soliciting, or do they typically approach you? How does that relationship work? Both?
Yep. So we get people emailing, calling, and approaching. But then we also, if one of us is out and about and sees some great work somewhere or knows someone that knows someone. So we just do we do both, and we try to review things quarterly and just take a look at who we have and who would make sense to add. And we don't, 65 artists is a lot. So we try not to, that's kind of been the threshold for quite some time. We want to make sure our artists are all getting the attention that they deserve, and so. Yeah.
So you mentioned something that stuck out with me. I think the term was getting creative with financials. So that
sounds illegal.
I know. Well, you have up months and you have down months.
Yeah.
And then you have a down month, and then you might have another down month, and then you might have another down month. And what does that do to your mindset if you are looking at your is this what you do? You just laugh?
I laugh. Yes, and I cry. No.
But as the business owner now, especially when you have employees on board, how does that impact your psyche at all, or is it something that you just sit there and think, and then you bring the team together and you start brainstorming? Talk about just how you handle that. How do you get creative with your financials?
Yeah, that's the toughest part of the job, is, like you said, being responsible for other folks and who I care about a lot. So I want to make sure that they're doing okay. And at the same time, I still have to look at my life and myself, because this is a source of income for me and my family. I'd say, lessons that I've learned is to ask for help as soon as you kind of have the inkling that you need some help. And that help might just mean advice. That help might mean a loan. That help might mean line of credit. So there are so many resources everywhere, and I think there's just more educational things happening every time. So I would say take advantage of any opportunity, because it will help you in terms of educational resources and financial resources. I'm lucky to have had a great accountant and personal banker that I've worked with, and so they've just helped me get through that. My parents and my brother, I have a brother in town, they're both self-employed. So apparently there's something genetic there that I was trying to deny. And my other brother that lives out of town is too. So I can't say enough about the advice and help that they've given me, when I'm kind of getting a little I call up Jack or I call up Mom and Dad and say, okay, I need to just talk. And
so that's kind of your support.
Yeah, that's a big part of my support, because they've been through it. They've been through every situation. And I mean, the first time I think I heard that from both parties, I was like, really? Because you guys always seem like you have your stuff perfectly together. No. Yeah. Back in such and such, we were blah, blah, and so that, just knowing that it helps, and that at the end of the day, you'll figure it out. And if you don't figure it out, then the people in your life will understand and know that you've, so it's
that. What else, that's a little bit of your support network. What do you do to just maintain sanity in life in general? I've heard wine a lot. I hear.
No.
Do you have any sort of go-to? Do you feel like you need to be in a routine,
No, routine is
not a thing.
Yeah. So I have, besides Maisie, who's 8, I have a nearly 3-year-old son. And so honestly, after a not so great day or a crazy day, it's really great to see their little faces and laugh at whatever they have to say. And they've saved me many times.
Kids.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But on the other side, there is wine. There's wine, there's beer. There are these types of things. If you stop by 203 5th Street most Fridays at around 4:15, 4:30, there will probably be something to drink for you if you need to. We have
instituted a happy hour, and after long weeks,
That's
and now
great.
it's most weeks, or sometimes it's on Tuesday, depending on the week. So
There's no full fridge
yeah,
in the back.
yeah. We're building quite a bar. We have lots of options. So anyway,
Do
no,
you
seriously,
promote that? Do you
Yeah.
promote the happy hour?
no.
No.
But now I am.
You
but
just have, so,
yeah,
and it's Friday
yeah.
right now.
We better
so-
stop at the store. No, but it's a great, like, we all just sit and chat, and it's kind of a nice way to end, and that helps. Yeah. That's,
Have you guys ever woken up in the shop on Saturday morning?
not yet.
Haven't taken it there yet?
Not yet. We'll see.
So you shared an interesting story with me about it was a grant contest,
Uh-huh.
right? That you ended up getting some free business coaching out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So chat a little bit about we get questions a lot. Have you should I consider hiring a professional business coach? It's kind of what we do here, but this is a business coach dedicated to your business. They're getting to know your ins and outs. Did you find that beneficial? Would you recommend it?
Absolutely. And in our situation, what was beneficial is just having a total outside perspective, because like I said, I've been there for 15 years, Mark's been there for 14 years. So we tend to have blinders on sometimes. But he was so helpful for a couple reasons. Is I was held accountable. I had to do homework, and you can try to streamline things all you want, and then a client walks in, and hopefully it's a good client, but that all goes out the door. So you can have a great plan for the day. That's why Mark says he never makes plans. You can have a great plan for the day, and then it's so he helped us kind of figure out that balance of, well, yeah, I understand that, but you guys still need a little bit more of a sturdier operation, standard of procedure and operations and things like
SOPs, you
that. SOPs.
He challenged
I
you to
use
do-
the acronym.
You did.
SOP.
And then you also mentioned he had pointed out just costs that you were spending
Yes.
that you maybe hadn't thought of
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, so that was a good exercise for us. So as we talked about, we do about 6 shows a year. So that means taking everything off the walls in the gallery and putting all new stuff or things from inventory that we haven't shown for a while. Anything new, for the most part, that comes in the gallery, we frame. So we're incurring that cost without the guarantee that it's going to go out. It's not like someone just coming in and saying, I want this framed, I'm going to pay for it. We're going to frame this, display it, make it look great, and hopefully people will buy it. So Andy O'Brien was the business coach, and he was like, okay, so you do this every couple months. What's your ROI here? I don't know. It was, we talked about it a little bit before, but he was like, no, I need you to break down what you're spending on everything, crackers, wine, time, every thing that's framed, et cetera, and, look at that against what you're selling out of the show. So it was a good exercise, and we need to do it again. We haven't done it for a while, but it was just a good thing to think
Just
about.
those learnings.
Yeah.
So if you look back since you've taken on the gallery, do you have has there been one mistake or challenge that really stands out to you, that really tested you a little bit?
There's so many mistakes. One mistake or
Examples.
challenge.
Maybe it's not the
No,
one.
I'm just
You just said there's so
using-
many. Just
What do we have? Let's see. That's
Mark's like, I got a couple. I
Raise
could
his
throw
hand.
out there.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm taking a long time
No,
with
you're
this. It's just a
fine.
hard.
Okay, what if we flip it around?
Yeah,
What if it's something that, have you had that moment where you thought, okay, man, I nailed it? Like,
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. The mistakes or challenges. Challenges is, I think, in the past. So I mentioned before, I didn't have a business degree or business background or a sales background, and so and we're not hard sellers. We're not. Hey, what can I get?
Yeah.
What do I have to do to get you to walk out of here with a painting?
Right.
But we still have to be fairly aggressive, and I'm more aggressive than I used to be, but so that kind of, I think that kind of perspective and getting to the bottom line, that took me a long time because I wasn't trained that way. You know, I was more focused on, as the gallery manager, sure, I was involved with sales, but it was more kind of the support for Marlene, who was doing most of the selling, and I'd gather the information or do the this and that. So changing that perspective and also making that something that made sense for me too, as feeling good about the way I was selling stuff and not, you know what I'm saying?
Would you say that's so maybe a characteristic that, would you say the selling part is a characteristic that anyone thinking about going into a business just needs to make sure that they're either comfortable with it or that they know someone that's...
Yeah, and like, you know, we talked a little bit about self-promotion yesterday too. You know, that's not, that's a weird feeling thing for some people to do, me included, but you know, and especially these days with the interweb, you have to do that stuff. And so I think it's finding that threshold of what you're comfortable with and what you, but still making sure it's doing enough to drive your business. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So.
What do you love the most about what you do and owning a business?
It's pretty amazing place to work. I get to work around beautiful artwork all the time that changes all the time, and work with artists that are fascinating and wonderful and sometimes frustrating. Valley Junction's a great community. You know, we're a very supportive community. It's like a small town. And you know, working with clients is, again, can be frustrating, but is a blast. Like, it's really fun I like that puzzle of someone walking in saying, I need something for this wall, but I don't have any idea of what I want. Okay, so then narrowing that focus and helping them narrow that focus, that's really fun. And I'm not just saying this because there's two of them in the room, but I work with the best people in the world. I mean, they're great. We have a really good time together, and they work their tails off for the place, and can't ask for more than that. So. What
about, so I know at least with some of the marketing for you, you talked about social. So you have a really active presence on social. You can follow her on Facebook and Instagram. What else are you doing from a marketing perspective? Is there anything that, you know, outside of I'm sure you do a ton, but
sure. And
how do you feel about marketing in general? Has that been pretty crucial to your business?
Absolutely. Yeah, so in addition to the online work that we do, we've advertised in every issue of DSM since its inception. So that's a really good, and we go to all their events and unveilings. That's a great avenue for us.
If there's value in print.
Yeah, and I would say that, you know, I mean, I think the caveat there is you can't be everything to everyone. So and I'm sure you've all heard this at marketing lectures and things like that, but you really figure out who you want to talk to. Or do a mix of kind of blanket and specific. And another thing too is that I've learned as well is that you have to try some things, and sometimes, you know, we just tried something for a year and it was like, nope, not doing that again. So now we're going to try something different, and being okay with making that investment, because that was another thing too, like spending, I'm a little like, especially with marketing, because it's kind of, so we've done a lot of that. And, you know, we do twice a year in Valley Junction, we do gallery night where all the galleries in the district are open, and that's a big promotion for us twice a year. So we help drive a lot of that marketing.
Networking,
we do a lot of networking.
Are there certain groups that you have latched onto from a networking perspective?
We do West Des Moines Chamber events. Mark's really good at kind of scouring the emails that come in and like, hey, this looks like a good one for us. And so we could just kind of get together at our staff meetings, and I'll go to this, you go to that, I'll go to this. And I've gotten more involved in the last couple of years in all the women's business groups that have been cropping up, which are great.
Are you
Fem City? And there's like a West Bank women's group, and WOW and that kind of thing. So, which is really, really fun to see all of that happening, and that there's such
to continue on. What would be some advice to them?
Go get a glass of wine.
The wine.
You know, and think about you know, you're gonna have struggles in any job you're in, and if you know when you're business owners, those struggles are magnified. So I would say, you know, make sure it's what you want to be doing, and ask for help. You know, even if it's ask for help in terms of calling a friend and being like, hey, I need to vent, or call these guys and say, you know, there's so many resources anymore that ask for help before you need it would be another thing before you really need it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I was saying yesterday, like that's something that I've definitely learned over the last several years. So just don't be afraid to ask for help, or just from your, you know, I don't want to. Oh no.
Yeah.
No.
Or are
this
there
is
any
fine.
questions? Are any of you in business? Are you thinking about starting a business? Anyone from the art world here that might be Chris?
Yes, this is a joy to listen to you. Thank you for coming today. And,
Thank you for coming. Thanks for driving.
I've been an artist, well, my whole life, but I started my own business officially 3 years ago.
Okay.
And I feel like I had all the smarts of knowing how to do it until I actually had it. And so it's been an educational process from day one. One of the hardest things for me has been I actually have to carve time to do artwork.
Sure.
Because there's the business end of it, which I've heard artists that I've known come before me say, oh, I hate that business end, and I all along kept saying, how hard can this be? How much can it be? I mean, no, I'm marketing not only my artwork, I'm marketing me.
Right.
I have a story, and my story is how I create my art. And so I think you were talking a little bit before about networking and talking about yourself, that sort of thing. I do the same. So often I've learned that I have to get over the reticence to talk about me now.
Sure,
Because
sure.
you're getting to feel like, I can't talk about Chris for one more minute. Except for if I don't, there's a 100% chance that nobody will know my story. Because once I start talking about me and talking about my art and then start selling my story, then they're like, oh, I see this in your art, and now I want to buy your art.
Right.
So anyway, that's just my 2 cents worth, and so I'm really resonating with a lot of the things that you're talking about, and thinking, yay, there's others out there like me.
Yeah. And so, you know, I mean, there are artists that we represent that don't ever want to go to an opening or don't ever want to talk. They just, you know, that you do the rest of it, and there are other artists that come, you know, it's just part of your personality, and it's what you, and so it's like you said, just kind of finding that balance and that threshold. But yeah, I get it. It's hard.
That balance was like that was a great word. That balance was not where the equilibrium was not where I thought it was going to be.
Sure.
And so I had to scale back last year and say, gosh, I have to produce art in order to sell art.
Right.
So I had to kind of fight that a little bit.
Well, and that, I think, well, you even commented on this too, is figuring out how to work on the business and not in the business.
Yeah.
And we know that's a struggle for a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question. Since you took over ownership and became an entrepreneur, what would you consider is one of your biggest investments that you've done as an owner, and how did you come to the decision of saying yes to that investment?
I will spend money.
Yes, I will spend money,
Yeah.
I will invest time or money into this particular focus,
Okay.
like marketing or something along those lines.
So, as Amy mentioned with the business coach, we won a contest put on by Main Street, Iowa. So they had a 3-tiered contest, and we won the neighborhood Valley Junction, and then we won the regional contest. So that was an investment of time that I was kind of like. Mark had mentioned the application. He'd seen the application a couple of times, like, hey, we should do this, and I was kind of like, oh, I don't want to do, you know, and we got other stuff to do. That whole like, no, you got to focus on this stuff as well. You have to look at the big picture. And I'm so glad we did it, not only because we were able to get some new software and new computers out of it, but because the manager and Mark and I sat down at the time. The manager at the time and Mark and I sat down and really looked at like, okay, if we had $10,000, what could we do? And it was a great team building exercise for us. And it was a really good exercise all around. We worked on this project together. We had to present together. I mean, it was a really wonderful experience. So, but it did take a lot of time. So in terms of a time investment, that was awesome. That was amazing. It was just good on so many levels. And I'd say in terms of a financial investment, you know, taking over deciding to lease the guild down the street, you know, that was, you know, doing it one time, it's like, oh, okay, great, fun. I didn't have to pay for it. I just got the thing for the night. But then moving forward, it's like, you know, is this something that we should really try? And
how did you decide to, or how did you fund it? Did you did you switch things around internally so you had the money? Or was that a decision where you said, okay, I'm gonna need some help?
No, it was more kind of like, I mean, and it wasn't like an astronomical amount, yeah, but there was a little just like, okay, well, I think we have enough to make this work. I mean, it's a little bit of a stretch, but it was important on those couple levels that I mentioned, important enough that, and I think it
was a risk, but a calculated.
Somewhat, yeah, because we thought about it for a little while. But I think I don't know, I don't want to say paying off in a literal sense, but paying off just in terms of exposure and getting new artists and folks in there. So I think those are the main.
Do you use those 2 awards in your current marketing? Like you've won those 2, look how great we are, and these are 10 other
that's
reasons
a brilliant
why.
idea.
Yeah. I mean,
Like that's something you don't want to tell people that you've won. I don't know.
No, when it was happening, we were Facebooking and things about it, and when we won, we definitely promoted it, and Valley Junction was really good about letting people know, but I guess I haven't thought about continuously
Every once in a
saying
while,
we're
maybe
award-winning
just-
business,
yeah.
yeah. Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
When you transitioned from being the manager to being owner, did you look for a replacement manager right away? Did you try and tackle both roles? Did you still want to be manager and be owner? You should talk about that. I see a reaction there.
Mark might want to answer this because it was he and I for 2.5 years, right?
So just
the 2 of us doing all of it, and Mark put in a lot of extra time, and it's kind of funny looking back on it. I was like, well, how did we do that? So,
yes, you did both.
Yes, yeah. I mean, and we kind of, because Mark's role kind of changed too when I took over. So he started doing some more sales and communication and things like that than he had done before. So it was, we just kind of went for it.
Well, and then at some point, obviously, to your question, the financial decision was made to hire.
Yeah, that's, I guess, that's another.
So what drove you? Was that just the hours you were all working and looking at numbers and saying, okay, this is going to be worth?
Yeah, I mean, it was almost like, I think in my mind, looking back on it too, it was almost like it just hit a point of
something has to change.
Yeah, and I needed to see kind of what it looked like for a little while too. I didn't want to just hire someone right away and then be like, oh my gosh, now I have to, I don't know. It was, I think timing wise, in essence, it worked fine, even though it was crazy. But it was just time for someone else. And I think we were so behind on a lot of things too, because we were trying to do everything that, deadlines were stretched and et cetera, so.
Any other questions? Yeah?
How much seasonality is in your business, and if there is a lot of it, how do you manage the family dynamics of not seeing each other during the busy seasons and getting through the worry wart in the slow times?
Sure, that's a great question. The gallery is a very strange business in terms of seasonality, because we're retail and we're in a retail neighborhood that is very seasonally driven, but we don't follow those retail rules. So we could have a great January and February and not so great July, which is kind of reverse on a lot of our neighbors. It ultimately depends on on our corporate side, who's building, who's remodeling, where their budget year ends, because sometimes it's we need to spend this pocket of money before the fiscal year is over. So that part of it's always fluctuating. In terms of balancing the family life, like I said, I have a lot of support both at the gallery and at home. So, and there's kind of an understanding at the gallery too, with our families and things like that. We understand there's sick kids and car breakdowns and things like
And
that. So
kids
we're
in the
very
office on occasion.
Kids in the office, yeah. So I try, you know, I'm very flexible about things like that. Yeah, and in terms of the worry part of things, that's just, yeah.
Always there.
Keep going.
Okay, well, thank you guys. Thanks for driving in.
Yes, thank you very much, ladies.
I know. Hey, if you want to meet people, we have business cards. There's business cards. Susan's whole team is out there. Our business cards are out there. If you ever want to stay connected, don't hesitate to reach out.
Oh, and we have an opening July 27th. It's a photography show. It's going to be a great show. July 27th, 5 to 7, 12 photographers. And
Coincides
then,
with your happy hour.
yes. Yep. And then another event that next day, a panel with several of the people in the show. So.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh, yes.
Remember to be.
Of course.